Right now, we're going to visit with a critically acclaimed singer, songwriter, and recording artist who's originally from Texas, but has lived in the SCV since 2002, and her first appearance at the Santa Clarita Cowboy Festival. Katy Moffatt has more than a dozen solo albums to her credit, most of which are now available on CD and online. She also appeared in the movies Billy Jack in the 70s, Hard Country in the 80s, and The Thing Called Love in the 90s. Welcome to House Blend, Katy.
Thanks, Stephen. Nice to be here.
Well, glad to have you here. Now, you're originally from Fort Worth, but you landed your record deal, your first record deal with Columbia in Denver.
I did.
How did all that transpire?
Well, to start with, I do consider myself a Texan, a lifelong Texan, but I got out of Texas as fast as I could, and ended up going back a lot for my Texas fixes. But the first place that I went to kind of just fly the nest and make it on my own was Colorado. And I actually was headed for Boulder, took the wrong road, and ended up in Denver. So I stayed there for 8 years.
Now, you recorded how many albums for Columbia?
Oh God, I started 6, 3 were finished, 2 were released. So I had a remarkable...
Would that be these two?
Yes, my goodness.
How about that?
Whoa.
Well, I was on the mailing list back in those days.
Unbelievable.
76 and 77.
And you have a
Katy Moffatt, the
demonstration.
eponymous debut album.
Yes,
and
indeed.
Then Kissin' in the California Sun, the follow-up.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
There you go. So then after Columbia, what happened?
Well, let's see. Oh, I signed with a little... well, I had moved to LA by 1979, before I left Columbia, actually, because I left my management, and they were the only game in town in Colorado. So everybody was out here, my agent, my lawyer, my record deal. So I lived in Los Angeles for a while, and in the 80s, at some point, made a deal with a little MCA distributed label out of Texas, actually, called Permian Records. But they released 3 singles on me, but then hit the ditch pretty fast, and the album was never released.
Now, the Academy of Country Music nominated you for Best New Artist in like 85.
Yeah.
Now, how did that, you'd been around a few years, how did that work?
I actually had no idea how that works. So my dear friend Nicolette Larson was also nominated in that category during that year. And of course, she had a huge smash hit in Whenever a Lot of Love was. I think it was, what, late 70s?
77, I think.
Yeah, something like, no, well, yeah, something like that. Anyway, she called me to tell me that we were both competing for the same award. And so we just went down there together. And she, of course, was not a new artist either. But that's just the way they do things, apparently.
Well, I think it was the country thing. You
know, that for
you
her
had just
it
started
was.
or just started releasing records in the country field, and so they thought you were a new artist.
Well, that's what it was for Nicolette, for sure. But for me, my first album was actually released by the Nashville division of Columbia, but although I was signed by the LA division. So I can't explain why I was a new artist in 85. Figure. I don't know.
All right, now you're going to play 2 songs for us today. The first one's about a woman with a gun. What's the deal with that? I
was reading this article about women in the U.S. who legal and illegally were carrying concealed. They're packing heat. Carried concealed handguns. Ooh. And it was fascinating to me because at that same moment, Texas passed the right to carry concealed weapons law. But what really struck me about this article is how the introduction of this item into a woman's household completely seemed to take over a woman's life. Oh. So that's kind of the angle I was writing.
All right, well, let's hear it right now. Here's Katy Moffatt and Never Be Alone Again.
She brushes her hair as the long day ends, slips under the cover, reaching for her new friend. First touch in the morning, the last touch at night. The last thing she sees when she turns out the light. Faithful protector who'll never let her down. The new 38 special that she got downtown. Oh, she always knows it's there. It's ready and it's able. It's radiating heat from her bedside table. It's her dirty little secret. As the rules of romance bend, she smiles and knows she'll never be alone again. Not again. No. She's spending her weekends at the firing range. Not much of a social life, but not a bad exchange. Shoot the man who hurt you is the instruction.